the last video on the practice final. Number 46. It says factor completely. The print is bad. I think that's a 2v to the second power minus 32. Okay, so factoring. Remember, factoring is a reverse distributive property. So you're going to pull out what? What are you going to pull out? The GCF. What is a GCF? What's in common in both terms? Somebody say it, please. What could I pull out? Could I pull out a 5? No. A 2. Thank you, Maddie. So 2 times, what do we have left? A v squared minus 16 on the inside. So you pulled out a GCF, the 2. That was the only thing in common in the first term and the second term, a multiple of 2. Pull out the 2, you have a v squared minus 16 on the inside. Now, focus in on the inside, and we're going to be able to factor that inside even further. So the 2 on the outside, I'm going to leave it like that. But on the inside, I'm going to rewrite it in blue as parenthesis, 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 right? So you have a v right here and a v right here. And then think what times what is negative 16, that if I combine together is the middle value, which is nothing. So that should be a minus 4 and a plus 4. So ladies and gentlemen, this is completely factored. As a matter of fact, they probably won't put the parentheses around these guys. It'll just be 2 v minus 4 v plus 4. That's your completely factored form right there. Moving on, solve each equation by using the quadratic formula. Yay! First thing to know is what is the quadratic formula? And right there's your quadratic formula. The next thing to do is to make sure that you rewrite your quadratic formula with parentheses instead of those variables. And then after that, we need to identify A, B, and C. Could I do that already? The answer is no, because this is not a standard form quadratic trinomial equation that's set equal to 0. So in order for you to apply the quadratic formula or even to factor, split, and solve, you need it to be equal to 0. So that's the first thing I want to do. I want to set it equal to 0 by subtracting 8x, cancels, subtracting 8x. I'm going to have 5x squared minus 8x minus 6 equals 0. And now I could identify A, B, and C. A is 5, B is negative 8, and C is negative 6. Which means I can now plug them into my quadratic formula. So there it is. I plugged in the B value of negative 8 right there, negative 8 right there, and the A value of 5 right in there, the C value of negative 6 right there, and the A value of 5 down there. So let's zoom in and work and simplify the quadratic formula. Obviously, a minus minus changes to plus plus. We have a positive 8 right there. Plus or minus the square root. You always start with the square root. And on the inside of the square root, negative 8 squared, that's positive 64. And then you have negative 4 times 5, that's negative 20. And then negative 20 times negative 6, that's going to be a positive 120. Right? And let me rewrite the rest. I have it over 2 times 5, which is 10. Okay, let's continue simplifying the radicand value, the value inside the square root, also known as the discriminant. So we're going to have 8, we have 8 plus or minus the square root of 184 over 10. So first question is, could you do the square root of 184? I'm trying it on the calculator as we speak. It does not work. It's 13.56465. It's an irrational number. So what I want to do now is I want to rewrite the square root of 184 right here on the side, and I want to see if I could break it down with multiplication so I could get a perfect square number involved instead of 184. So again, the goal is you want a perfect square number. 184 is not a perfect square number, so I'm going to rewrite it with multiplication to get a perfect square number. So how do I do that? On a calculator, write down 184 and see if it's divisible by 4, because 4 is a perfect square number. And yeah, it does work. 4 times 46. So we have 4 times 46. Let's rewrite it. And you could split the square root now. And the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 46 stays the square root of 46. Now you might try to break this down again, but the only thing you could break it down to is 2 times 23, and neither of those are perfect square numbers, so that's as simple as it gets. So going back to our answer, we're going to have to rewrite 8 plus minus, but instead of 184, I'm going to write 2 square root of 46, the work that we did right here on the side. And it's still over 10. Now, at this point, I need to simplify. Now, understand this, 8, 2, 10, those are all even numbers. I could reduce all three of these guys by 2. So if I reduce all of them by 2, if I reduce by 2, I'll get a 4. Reduce by 2, I'll get a 1. Reduce by 2, I'll get a 5. So my final answer will be 4 plus or minus square root of 46. I could put a 1 right here in the front, but the truth is the multiple choice will not have a 1 in the front. So divided by 5, that's your final answer in simplified radical form. I hope this helps.